G'day everyone and welcome to another 100 Things Fireside, where we talk to industry experts or gurus within hot topic areas in the world of bucket lists so that you can walk away with tips and tricks to start your own journey and of course check off your own items. This week's Fireside is all about becoming an artist. We speak with Danielle Weber, an incredible artist, and she's going to drop tips and gems of wisdom on all things from getting into art, how to develop your skill set, how to turn a passion into a profession, how to even price your work. This is going to be really interesting. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you enjoy. Danielle, how are you? Welcome.
So good. How are you? Nice to see you, even though we're on the other side of the world.
I know. How's everything in Melbourne?
Oh, yeah. Melbourne's good. Well, the sun's shining today, so that's a good day of lockdown.
That's great. Well, hey, thank you for doing this. As you know, this is kind of almost a how to become, and this edition is an artist like yourself. And the question I always start with, certainly because I can see a piece of art behind you for those who are watching the YouTube. Where did you first fall in love with art? Was there a particular moment when you were a kid, perhaps, where something for you clicked, and what was it?
Yeah, so great question. I think it didn't really click because I probably wasn't aware back, because I was probably 3 years old. So that's as early as I started drawing for hours on end. I guess I wasn't really interested in like technology or computers or anything. So I'd literally anything hands-on, Play-Doh, clay. So yeah, from a young age, I knew that there was something, obviously, like I enjoyed art more than other people. And then it was something that I guess I always resorted to. That was my activity time. And then, yeah, sort of moved from drawing to watercolors and eventually to acrylics and whatnot. So I just went through the motions with all the mediums.
Oh, I love it. So it wasn't painting at first. It was just a bunch of creative stuff. And then as you developed, you found you naturally gravitated towards painting and acrylics. Is that your thing, by the way, acrylics? I'm trying to learn about art. Is that the right term?
Yeah, no, definitely acrylics. I have done a few oil paintings, but acrylics are faster, and I like to I don't like getting stuck on pieces. I like sort of getting them done. So yeah, acrylics for the most part. But in saying that, I do use, I dabble in watercolors still. I use spray paints as well. So endless opportunity.
Okay, that's cool. And so now, however many years on, we don't need to talk about that, but you are a professional, fully fledged, fully functioning artiste.
Yeah, you can say that. It's been my sole income. It's been my living for, like 6 years now, I'd say. So 7 years. Yeah.
Well, you're the perfect person to talk to, because basically, as I see it, on our site, we have people who want to be basically art is a popular theme. And so whether it's, someone who just wants to get better at art and create paintings for their house, to someone who wants to be a professional artist, to like kind of the funnier ones, like, people wanting to paint something that sells at auction. Toddy, who I work with on 100 Things, that's his goal. He just wants to sell an art piece that he created at an auction with no background. I'm sure he's willing to train, but
100% believe in you guys. You can do it.
And then there's, people who just want to, have it hung somewhere, whether that's the Louvre, which might be, asking a lot, but I guess the common thread to all of that is you've got to be good to a degree, and you've got to have a skill set. And so I guess my question to you is, well, where did your skill set come from? How do you develop it? For people listening at any point in their career, how do you ongoingly, at the beginning or at the end, improve your art?
Yeah, so I think this is a good debate that I have with people who may hold a talent, and then they ask how they can, or how do you get where you are? So I sort of have these arguments, because I used to think it was, 50% talent, 50% hard work. But then as the years went on and, painting became an obsession, and I looked back on where I'd come from, I was like, I do actually believe it's more hard work. So I was born, there's no doubt I was born with a natural talent and a natural zest for art and anything creative. So I've got that spark within me that's obviously driven, that hard work and kept me going. But there's always a starting point, and everyone's like, oh, but my work's so crap. And I'm like, yeah, but I started there too. So it's not as if I was just, I could paint like this from the get-go. So there's always a journey. So I don't know whether it's 60-40 or 70-30. I'm probably leaning towards 70% hard work, 30% talent. But without that talent, I wouldn't be here, because that sort of drives me. Because I think, you know, you talk to other artists and they're going through that frustration stage where they scribble out all their work and they get all frustrated. And I've sort of bypassed that stage now. That doesn't really happen anymore. So it's just, yeah. So I'd say, yeah, it's a balance of both.
Sure. So it's hard. And I love that you say that, because we interviewed recently on another fireside, Mark Stabina, who played rugby, Australia Sevens, played for the Waratahs, played all around the world. And he said he was a perfect embodiment or example of someone who just worked hard. Yeah, talent's important to a degree, but he outworked everyone. And that's, you know, you can always develop skills and awareness and deeper knowledge within you. So again, for people watching, you don't have to be good straight away. You know, you don't have to be able to create a piece. I mean, what's that example they say to Picasso? I'm going to make, I think it might have been Picasso, but he does a little scribble on a bit of paper, hands it to someone, sells it for, let's say it's $1 million. And like, how was that $1 million? You just it took you 5 minutes. He's like, no, it took me a career
to get here and to be able to do something like that in 5 minutes. So
so hard work. So that's it. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, because I guess the more I go on, I sort of sometimes question, like, oh, am I getting paid a bit more now? But yeah, like, it's that journey. Like, it's now, like, it's now, yes, I can paint quicker now. But yeah, it's that journey that they're like, there's no sort of value. Like, I guess that's the beauty of art. Like, you can't really be like, oh, that's worth $10 because you put this amount of hours in it, or that's worth. So yeah, it's very ambiguous, the word. I don't know. Like, there's no limits, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but.
No, I hear you. And I will get to the money part as well later, because that's interesting. I know we were just having a bit of a chat beforehand, but I guess, you know, you talk about, okay, hard work, of course. It comes from a creative space. Talent helps. You don't necessarily have to do, I mean, if you just enjoy it, that's good enough, right? It's an art form. It doesn't have to be a career or a money generating thing. But what about, like, I guess my question is, okay, you're acrylic now. That's your main thing. A couple of oil paintings as well. Does someone try and do all of that stuff? You know, like, for people who aren't listening, who aren't 3 years old or 4 years old whenever you first started doing it, people who are, let's just say, in their 20s or their 30s, do they have to know what they like doing specifically to be able to advance in that area?
No, definitely not. I mean, sometimes I get sick of acrylic and then might have a break and do something else. Like, so I think as you just go, like, you just feel your way through art. Like, I never really have a plan. I guess, well, that doesn't really make sense, but I don't really have a plan to be like, oh, I'm going to stick to acrylic. But if I feel like using a different medium, like, I'll go for it. So you don't, like, I think, and that's the, like, it's a true gem like that. You know, you could be 100, like, you could be 100 and start painting. Like, it's never too late. You could be, it's, you know, like, my mum hasn't painted for years, and I'm like, pick up the paintbrush again, start painting. So, and yeah, she'd never painted an oil painting in her life, and she's just picked up oil painting. So it's sort of like, any age, you'll find what medium you like. If it's something that frustrates you and you don't enjoy it, change it, do something else. Like, you might start drawing and then move to watercolor. So definitely no limits on that note.
How do you, what are someone again listening right now and they're like, right, I want to get in there? Because so many people have lists, so many people have specific goals. When it comes to art, there's no difference, I don't think, conceptually. A lot of people have it there, but they never do it. They just never do it. Yeah. So what's your advice? What can people do right now as a way of taking that first step into becoming an artist, whatever that means to that person? I'm imagining there are art classes, and I'm sure there are online resources as well. What do you recommend? What would you suggest?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's the beauty of, I guess, technology these days. Like, there's so many resources. Like, you actually don't physically need to go anywhere to learn and to do things. So, I mean, I don't use YouTube a lot for, like, tutorials and whatnot, but I know a lot of artists who do, and you know, a lot of advanced artists who still jump on YouTube and learn and do tutorials, whether you know, they have been working with acrylic and they want to learn how to use oil. So use your resources firstly. And then if someone came to me and said, look, I've never painted before, I want to skip the drawing side. I do suggest that you know, maybe have a few sketches and whatnot if you want to, like, delve into, like, complex drawings. But I guess fluid art and abstract art is actually quite accessible. So, I mean, I would say start with watercolor. There's a lot of movement, and you can just have a play around with colors and like blending. And I that's how I started. I started with watercolor at 9 years old, and then I guess I moved to acrylic by probably 12 years old, maybe. And acrylic, like it depends on what you're painting. It can be quite frustrating. It can be quite hard. So I would just say, like, if you want to work on portraits, then I'd say definitely sticking to black and white first. But if you want to, maybe do some abstract and fluid art, then like that's like super fun. No limits to that. You can just buy some acrylic paint, mix water into it, buy some inks. You might find some things around the house that you're like, oh, I might try putting that in a painting. Like, it's so, yeah. So heaps of different things you can do with that sort of art.
So, okay. So again, what I love there is you're talking about just getting stuck in. Like, again, another fireside that we did was with a guy called Cal Brock, who's a surf coach. And he said, just get out there. Just basically get out there and surf. Get in the water as often as you can. It seems that it's a similar principle for art. And so if someone is there like, okay, I want to get stuck in right now, what is there like, but they don't have anything. They don't have a paintbrush. What is like a beginner's, in your opinion, what is a beginner's checklist of essential things they need? I say paintbrush, maybe that's not needed. I know people paint with their hands. Like what's crucial? What are the first 3, 4, 5 things you need?
Yeah, well, I'd say if you wanted to look into doing like acrylic on canvas, obviously there's different mediums, so we could go into anything really. Mm-hmm. I'd say you don't necessarily need canvases. Some people are a bit hesitant because they're, art supplies can be expensive, and they're like, oh, like I don't want to ruin canvases. You might even find like a wood board on the side of the road, or an old door that you can sand back and paint on, or there's so many, if you actually open your eyes, there's so many things that you could use as your canvas. So if money is limited and you don't want to be blowing money on something that you don't know where it's going to go, because if it's your first painting, it's a bit risky, then have a look around. There might be some plaster sheets that you can go to a builder and say, hey, can I use them? So if you don't have access to canvases, you can do that. And then I'd say just working with your primary colors first. So blue, yellow, red, and then you've got maybe some white, and you can make pastels out of that, and learning how to mix those colors. So
yeah, I think everyone, I know that I remember that blue and yellow equals green, because I remember when I was a kid doing art, I blurred the sky into the sun by mistake. And green sun. So watch out for that. Anyone who
that's a good tip. Actually, you know what? I still get confused about that. I'm like, blue, red, is that purple? And then sometimes you just have like a blank, and then I end up making like brown. Like it's just
What's that that wooden thing that artists have, and it, with a thumb hole, and it has the different
palette.
That's a palette. Okay. Is that crucial?
No. So I don't even use, like I used to have palettes. So I thought, when you're starting out, you need all the equipment. So, you can buy, unfortunately, everyone still uses a lot of plastic and whatnot to pack meat and vegetables and bread. So I use like the meat trays, or like sometimes veggies come on like those foam trays as well.
Yeah.
So I reuse them like over and over and over and over again.
Awesome.
So, they're going to go in the bin anyway. So great to reuse stuff like that. And then for like, I use old cups, like teacups and stuff for water jars. And so it's literally like, and there's an easel, you can just like put a chair up and lean it against the easel if you want, or if you're working on fluid art, grab an old sheet or an old drop sheet and pop your canvas on the floor, and you generally work flat anyway. So
there's the barriers to entry into art are so minimal. I mean, you just need some paint ultimately.
Really,
and that's probably.
And on that note, I have another little hack for that. So I don't know wherever you are in the world. In Australia, we have Bunnings, and when you go into the paint store, I know it's sometimes daunting for people, especially females. If you looked at by all the tradies, like, what are you doing in here in your tradie clothes? But but if you go into the paint section, I'm not sure if in the US they have this, but it is the best thing ever. Go into the paint section and ask them for mist tints. So
Miss Hints.
basically, you get your little sample pots of when people are painting and renovating their houses, and there's a lot of the people make mistakes when they're mixing the paint. So then that gets shoved aside and put to a discounted price. So I buy little mist tints for like $1 or $2, and that
No.
yes. So that is like the best life hack ever, and it's really cheap. And then that way, you sometimes like some of my mist tints, if I show you, like that is the coolest color ever because you get like
No
pinks,
way.
greens, and then like sometimes some even like good cool mid tones that I can't mix. Like even if I tried to mix them, I wouldn't be able to mix them. So
Wow, that's so cool. I
yeah,
mean, okay, so with all that said, anyone can start, it seems. Get down to Bunnings, or I think it's Home Depot here in the US.
okay, yeah,
Get the recycled meat tray, and that's your palette, and find some wood and just start painting. I love this. So now the question I want to ask you is, well, it's two questions. One is, where do you get your inspiration from to drive what you do? And I see a lot of your stuff, because now you're blossoming and you're doing so many good things. It's great. So I'm curious just for you where your inspiration comes from. And then to put the question to the people who are the budding artists listening, where should they and how should they derive inspiration? Where does that come from? Is it something that just very meaningful to them? Do they just have to open their eyes and look around? Where do we go?
yeah. So I think it depends on the person you are as well, because some people are naturally, like I actually spoke about this yesterday, some people are naturally super imaginative and they'll sit there and they'll come up with things like in their head. So if you're one of those people, then it might just take, doing a little, like you can do a little mood board and write down on a whiteboard and sort of stem ideas from that. I don't really work like that. So for me, travel is probably like my biggest inspiration for my own pieces. You've got cultures, you've got colors, you've got landscapes, you've got lines everywhere you look. So for me, yeah, like, I haven't been able to travel recently, but when I go for a walk, instead of just being like, oh, I've got to get this walk done, like got to get 40 minutes done, I'll actually open my eyes and look around me. Like, there's the flowers, look at the colors of those flowers, look at the colors of this. And as I've gotten older, I've been able to open my eyes more and appreciate these sort of things and not just, go through the motions of life without realizing what's around you. So I'm naturally not the most imaginative person, and I'm not a creative genius in a sense that I'm like, oh, look at that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like my brain doesn't flow like that. I have to trigger. I have to, it has to be triggered. So, it's interesting. Like, you can literally find inspiration anywhere. Obviously, a lot of my portraits and whatnot, I'm working with clients and learning about their lives and their stories and what a certain person means to them. So that's a lot deeper. And I guess, when you're painting a person, like I don't just paint them straight off the bat. I'd like to know where they've come from, what they've achieved. So that's another level of like inspiration and whatnot. But
So your storytelling, because you do a lot of portraits, like you say. I've seen you paint The Rock and Arnie and, a whole bunch of incredible people. So you're like, I guess the inspiration comes from story, from individual stories there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, but like, if you like playing games, like, you might play Pokemon, like go and get some inspiration from there, and then like create like a deconstructed piece of Pokemon, like in an abstract piece. Use the colors as inspiration. Like there's so many paths. Like it just, I guess, find your inspiration from something that you enjoy though, because you don't want to be like, oh, I've got to find like do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
So, like maybe a good place to start, pick something that you like doing, go and do it, open your eyes, really switch on and be like, okay, like what am I seeing here that I could put into a painting or tell a story about? So
it almost seems like inspiration is abundantly all around us.
everywhere.
The key to kind of receiving it is understanding yourself though, like it is with many things. Oh, okay. That's cool. So, as with everything, it just seems this is therapy in a way.
Yes,
Which I love.
it is. And that I could talk about that. And I mean, I back that all the way. I'm super passionate about the fact that I believe art is therapy. So, and you don't have to be good. You don't have to be, Picasso. But yeah, I feel like for mindset and just getting lost and perhaps, switching off, it's like really cool. And then that could just be as simple as coloring in, get yourself a coloring in book, color in.
Yeah. So almost like a meditative type of exercise.
100%.
Well, okay. So dipping into the psychology side of it then, not that I'm a psychologist and I know, well, maybe you are. Are you a psychologist?
No. I did try to study it, but I didn't get very far.
Well, okay. So I'm excited to ask you. So with like creative pursuits, you know, we all have an inner critic, I think, that comes in at one time, even not creative pursuits. Like I just think it just happens naturally. Is that something that you find with art, you know, with yourself? And if so, I guess anyone listening who again is like dipping into art in whichever way that they're doing so, they probably have the same thing. And so what's your advice to people who encounter that critic, that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, what am I doing? How do you battle that?
It's funny that you say that because I still battle that to this day, like most days. So unfortunately, if you want to tap into, I'll be honest, and if you want to tap into the art world, like I feel like a good artist will always face that. Even Picasso, you know, I think he was really young, early teens, and his work's obviously quite out there, but he could do whatever. Like he had conquered like realism. He could paint whatever he wants. So I think he got like almost bored because he's just like, well, I can do everything. And that's where his work took a completely different path. But he would have been a critic of his work until, you know, the day he died. So I think good artists, like, they will never lose that. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all, because it just means that, you know, like you want more, or you want to try different things and you want to keep improving. If you're happy with where you are, like, you'll just be like, oh, okay, complacency, cool. So like I sketched up a piece last night, and I went to bed and I was just like, I did it too small. Did I do it too small? Like I literally woke up this morning. I'm like, I'll go have a look. I think I like, nah, I stuffed it up. Nah, so shit. Got to do it again. Like all the time. Like last week I did, you know, I did something on a piece. I had one job and I was just like, that looks so bad. Like, you had one thing to do to finish this piece. And like, and it was just, yeah, it's funny. I just sort of laugh it off though. I'm just like, oh, it happened for a reason, like do it again or whatever. But yeah, there's definitely that inner critic in there. You just got to make sure it doesn't like turn into frustration or resentment towards like something that you enjoy or you're supposed to enjoy.
Right. So it's almost like you're less battling it. Like it seems like it's always there. You don't actually just get rid of it. And therefore, if you feel it, you're failing. It's like you're dancing with it more. You're kind of listening to it and maybe just trying to manage it rather than just completely delete it, because that's not possible.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, I mean, it might be, but I don't feel like that's going to be beneficial, because then you sort of just, you know, stay in that circle and keep sort of, I guess, stagnant. But I mean, you speak to artistic genius, or like you listen to artistic geniuses, and they are never happy with where they are or what they're doing. David Cho, I mentioned to him before we jumped on, and like, it's almost like you can tell he just yells at himself all day, every day, like, you're not good enough, like and I mean, I don't have that within me, but he's another level of artistic genius. And as much as I'm kind of jealous of that, like I would never wish that upon me, because I think it's very hard mentally to battle every day. So it's like, that's another level of critic. And he just like, he's, you know, and I write down a lot of the things that he says. Like he said, you know, comfort is the killer of creativity, and comfort is the killer of anything. So it's quite like deep, but totally like, you know,
almost like another conversation, isn't it? I mean, whether that's good. Yes, he produced, I don't know this guy, but I'm assuming he produces a lot of amazing stuff, but like at what cost personally? And
and that's why I would like, as much as I'm like, oh my God, I want to be you, like your mind is so cool, I don't think I'd be able to handle it. Definitely not.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't think that people just getting into art need to worry about that just yet.
Sorry.
No. I'm equally as interested in talking about it. But I guess, so, okay, so that's like your inner conversation. You have to keep yourself on track. So then I want to talk about community, like people exterior to you who, again, keep you on track, again, with all our firesides, no matter what it is, script writing, acting, blah, blah, blah. One constant is that it seems that community is really important. Having people on your side, whether they're people who are doing what you're doing and you can brainstorm or collaborate, or whether it's just support. a friend or a family member. Is that the same for art? And, or can someone just be this artistic recluse, like a Quasimodo character in the bottom of a church, just, painting to his heart's content? Or have you found that community is important? And if so, what's your advice to building a strong community to help support you?
Yeah, so definitely. I think community, family, friends. I wouldn't be an artist if it wasn't for my family encouraging me to do so. So just quickly straight out, and I acknowledge that. And I guess I live in Melbourne, and it's super supportive, super rich in art and culture. So, I can go paint a mural and I mean, you still get people like, oh, you're a graffiti artist, like don't graffiti the walls. But for the most part, like when you're painting out in the street, people are like, oh, that's amazing. And then they don't have that. We sort of, over the years, gotten rid of that negative stigma attached to graffiti and painting on walls. So that community there is really, really supportive. So there's still a lot of places in the world that are very behind, and they'll get there with time. And as culture shifts, and as there's a lot of, obviously there's politics, there's everything, there's so much involved. So yeah, community is definitely, because you're not sort of constantly battling against. Yeah. I say pushing shit uphill. That's like the biggest Aussie slang. So yeah. So friends, like, and no matter where you are in your career, it's always like what you do, amazing work. And it's always nice to be like, good job, Seb. Like you're like friggin' awesome. Love watching your journey.
True, yeah.
No matter who it comes from or no matter where you are in your journey, it's always amazing. It's always uplifting to hear that. Yeah. So friends, family, whether it comes from a complete stranger or whether, and I guess that's the beauty of social media, is that I get hundreds of messages a day from people all over the world that have said, hey, my daughter loves your page. She looks at it every day and she started painting. She's 5 years old. Hey, my son just got out of jail and he started painting. Hey, my son was about to commit suicide, saw your work and started painting. And it's just unreal. And that's community. Wow. There's a sense of community outside social media, and there's, as much as it can be quite volatile, and there's a sense of community, within. So
it's
again,
unbelievable.
Resources. So
I always love to hear that. I mean, art truly is just such an incredible way to connect. Perhaps the most powerful, whether it's art like paintings or music or dance. Good on you for doing what you do. Not that you need that. You get hundreds.
But it is nice. It's lovely because it's like what's the saying called when you pass it on, like the ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
It's really, yeah.
So okay. So here's a question. So your family have been supportive. It seems as though you've sort of had a crew with you along the way, friends. What about someone who might be listening who's kind of without that? Their parents or family maybe aren't on their side. It's a secret thing, perhaps. I don't know. It could be different for anyone. But for someone who feels quite alone at this point, wherever they are in their artistic journey, how do you build that? How do you go out and find somebody, whether it's just a friend or whether, and I guess maybe a slightly separate question as well, is it important to find somebody who is also an artist so you can brainstorm and talk about things, etc.? How do you start that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes back to like using your resources again. Jump on socials or jump on YouTube and find some artists that you like and just say, hey, I'm starting out. Like, be my art friend. Like, you've got nothing to lose. And if your family aren't supporting you, then I'd say work your ass off until they say, oh shit, like we probably should have believed in you from the start. Prove them wrong. So, so on that note, that's, a little word of advice for that. Because I have spoken to and I have mentored a lot of people who don't have that support. So use it as fuel. Yeah. As easier said than done. I get that, but use it as fuel. But yeah, I mean, I personally have not been the greatest at that, and I don't feel like I reached out to people at the beginning, or even now. I'm still not great at reaching out to artists and being like, hey, I have a question, or hey, like, do you want to rant about this together? And hey, what do you think about this? I probably just I'm quite stubborn in that sense. And I like to just sort of chug through the waters on my own. But if you're one of those, some people are just amazing at asking questions. I have artists who literally message me like a couple of days, like every week, just with questions. I'm like, good on you. Like, cool. If you can do that. And that's something I'm working towards. So,
and do you respond?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so I asked because I love, like, it's a very proactive step. And if you, and it's free, you can research someone and reach out to them. And we were speaking to Sam Edmonds, a photographer, another fireside. I keep referencing firesides. I never have before, but I'm just starting to see this beautiful pattern emerge where he would say, find photographers whose work you love, artists, and reach out, and you will normally get a response. And that's how
100%.
you start connecting. So building community, even if you feel alone, is made so much easier through social media, and then just having the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, we've covered a lot so far. I want to get into so stepping away maybe from the beginning, just taking your first few steps into art, to now talking to people who want to somehow monetize their art, start a career, become a professional artist, whatever that means, because I don't really know. Can you maybe shed some light on what the professional landscape of being an artist is? I mean, I know you do a lot of commission work, for example, but I'm sure there's a million different types of things you could be doing to make money as an artist, and maybe just, as a bit of inspiration to people, some ideas. What's out there? What is out there? You could be a teacher, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, when I first was, I guess, considering being an artist, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, how are you going to make a living? And over the years, I was just like, whoa, like, find myself at a dermatology conference, painting live, like find myself, donating pieces to all sorts of charities and meeting all sorts of people. So I'll give you a bit of a rundown of like that's probably the easiest of like what I'm sort of tapped into at the moment.
Sure.
So yeah, I've got my commission canvases. I now do murals as well. So I'm painting cafes, gyms, buildings, working with building developers, working with stadiums, working with sports people, endless. Then I've collaborated with all sorts of brands, shoe brands, clothing brands, working with Uniqlo at the moment, working with beer companies. I traveled to Sydney for weeks on end, working with various beer companies to paint bars and do a collaboration there. So then I also have my prints business, and then I'm going to be printing on t-shirts, and I've made puzzles out of my work as well. And
love that idea, by the way. I just did a puzzle the other day, not to chip in, and it was unbelievable. And I thought about that idea. So it exists and you're doing it. Love that.
Yeah. I got to send you one. Well, I don't know if you're going to be friends with me after, because it's super, super hard, but I will send you one. So I'll get your details.
I would love it. I'm
going to send that to you. So don't just remind me to get your address. Creepy. No, but yeah, endless. And what else are we doing? So painting people's houses, recently I've now have a business of a sip and paint business. So we're open on the weekends. You go in and you have a 3-hour session. You take your wine, you take your food, you get a teacher, you have your canvas, and you paint for 3 hours and get pissed. You don't have to get pissed, but you can if you want.
That's drunk in American, by the way. Pissed.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, the endless. So that's a business that I can display my art there. I guess I call it my gallery, but it's more so just my prints. There's design collaborations that I do. You can work with charities and donating pieces and working on designs. Talking to a children's clothing line of getting my work on there. I could keep going.
Oh, it's amazing. I had no idea. I mean, it goes on and on. It's creative in itself. There's art, creation, and then there's the business side. And I guess, so I have so many questions about this. I'll try and keep it succinct because I typically don't. But like, how do you balance when it comes to monetizing an art form? How do you balance both the art, which is, this expressive kind of flowy thing, with the business, which typically is more strategic and numbers driven? How have you gone with that? And what's your advice to someone who is looking to step into one of the many options, as an example that you gave just then?
That's hard. And typically, if I'm being, I don't mean to be I mean, this doesn't apply to everyone, but typically artists are known for not being good business people. So, and that's because, you know, we were born to paint. We weren't born to be managers or businessmen. So, and women. So I'm fortunate that I've worked on these skills over the years. So I am quite business savvy, but for those who don't, there are people that you can reach out to. There's things online that, you know, you can, there's online galleries that you can put your work up there and then they sell it for you. There's, you know, there's mural websites where you can actually, you know, put your profile up there and have a look at what jobs are going and, you know, say, I want that wall, put your pitch in. Look, it is hard to balance because I've always got a lot going on and I'm always switching between so many different jobs and whatnot. So mentally it's like a bit of a roller coaster. I have got an agent, so they help me with, you know, social media collaborations and all the back and forwards. So yeah, there's definitely help out there. Maybe, you know, different stages in your journey and different stages in your career, you might not need it at the beginning, and it is probably good to get your head around your business yourself. So mine started on social media and sort of evolved. So it wasn't a quick leap. It wasn't you know, I didn't just jump into it. And I learned, and then there's obviously, I don't know if this is what you meant by it. Sorry if I went on a bit of a tangent, but obviously pricing your work and putting a value to your work is super hard.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Because I do want to ask you, there's three things that are, so from what you just said, as super interesting. One, is getting an agent crucial? I didn't know that was a thing. So getting an agent for an aspiring artist who wants to turn this into a money-making thing, getting an artist so they can help best position you and make contacts, etc. Is that crucial?
I'd say not at the start. I don't think it is. I think it's good to find out what you want to do, where you want to go, like just sort of find your feet in your business first until you've sort of gotten to a certain stage where you're like, okay, there's a lot going on and I need this help. And I mean, I'm fortunate with my agents, they take, you know, between 15 and 25%, whereas a lot of other agents will take between 40 and 50%. So if you are at, like, I mean, this is talking figures now, you know, if you are, like, you know, only selling your work for maybe a couple of $100, then having an agent wouldn't be worth it for you at that point. But when you start talking like the 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, then maybe if they're getting those connects and being able to sell your work, it would be worth it for you. I'm stubborn and I like doing as much as I can on my own because I like stressing myself out. It's great. So, yeah, so I, you know, but when I get to a point, like I'm just sort of going with the flow at the moment. Like when I do need to hire someone else perhaps, or to branch out, then I will, and I'll, you know, and yeah. So, but at the start, I don't think it's crucial for an agent. And when people sort of say, oh, how do I price my work? I'm like, well, it sounds stupid, and it sounds simple, but just be happy with what you sell it for. You don't want to like give it away and then be like, oh my God, I should have sold it for more. Like literally, as long as you're happy with it, no, like doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if someone says, oh, you could probably have got $50 more for that. Right. As long as you're happy and you're not resentful when you hand that piece of art over.
Can we talk about this? So a lot of people want to sell an art piece, and a lot of people just want to do it once, by the way. It's brilliant. But again, so for artists, I think you've pretty much given the answer, which is great. How do you price a piece? Well, sell it for a price that you'd be happy with. Yeah, is it as simple as that? I mean, you mentioned that artist before and he was struggling and he just put an astronomical number on maybe tell that story quickly, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, basically it was like, I've got nothing to lose. And probably at the start of I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's just a rough story. Yeah. But he's like, I've got nothing to lose. And it was at the start of his art career. And he's like, oh, well, stuff it. I'm just going to put a ridiculous number on this because I've got nothing to lose. And obviously a wealthy buyer saw this and saw the value of it, because sometimes people buy things because if it's a higher value, they think it's worth purchasing. They've got to buy it because, you know, someone else might buy it before them and get this piece of, you know, art that's worth $50,000 or whatever the number was. Once you've sold that piece for that amount, like there you go, you've got your base sort of thing, and run with that. So I've never done that. But in saying that, like one of my pieces got auctioned for would have been like 12,000, I think, US. Wow. I remember actually. but in saying that, in different countries, like art holds different values as well. I feel like in Australia, we are a little bit behind and perhaps don't pay as much for art. So, whereas in America, bit of a different story. So, I mean, yeah, like there is more to it if you want there to be more to it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But if you're willing to just be like, I've got nothing to lose, here's my piece of work for 10 grand. If you want to pay it, pay. If not, I don't care.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and again, I suppose that talking about that's a slippery slope. We could go on and on, but
Yeah.
I know you will have pleased Toddy again, who I'm working with, because he has an idea of wanting to sell an art piece for a lot of money, potentially as part of a prank for a good cause, I should also say. So anyway, I know he'll listen to this.
You have to keep me posted on that. I'm so excited. And if you need any tips, even though I've never done it before, you have to keep me posted. So
Great, I will. And then the third thing that I wanted to ask you about, one of your answers earlier, was the social media aspect. And I think that kind of ties into, I wanted to ask you about networking. Like, you've worked with so many brands and individuals and companies and schools and businesses and what have you. It seems very clear that like word of mouth is important, networking is important, and social media is just a platform for just that. With the advent of Instagram and what have you, how important is it to have a strong presence?
It is very important for me. I mean, you might be in a different field that, having a strong website will be more beneficial, but like a lot of people say, do I need an Instagram? Do I need a social media? You don't need one. No one's telling you need this. But like, I'll give you an example. If a big client was looking, had a handful of artists, had 5 artists, and they've got me, they've got and maybe a few other female artists and maybe a couple of male artists. And, I've got nearly 200,000 followers, and then the others are perhaps, maybe 5, 6 to 10,000 followers. And the brand that is hiring me also want it to use it as a double whammy as marketing.
Sure.
I might not be as talented or as creative or as good, or maybe not even fit the role 110%, but if they're going to be paying the same amount as what they've, pitched to the other artists, then maybe that's just one up on the other people who are going for the job. So if you look at it from that side of view, then 100% it's beneficial, and I've probably scored a lot more roles having it.
Sure.
So, and social media collaborations and whatnot. But that aside, you like, it's funny because some people are like, oh, but I go on Instagram, I see how good everyone is, and I get really deflated. And I said, well, you could either use it to deflate you or lift you up and motivate you and be like, oh my God, that person's really, really cool. I love their work, and use it as inspiration / motivation. So sometimes I wake up feeling like the Hulk, and sometimes you wake up feeling like someone else. So on different days, you've got to sort of read the signs. If social media isn't benefiting you, maybe you need a break from it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can, scroll through, and there's just endless amounts of art just popping up in your face. So it is good. It is good on that note.
Yeah, completely. And I guess you've answered that. I feel from like a business perspective, which is kind of what it is. Like, social media does play such a big role with so many things, even, speaking as I do, it plays a certain role because you can promote an event. So it's a reality, I think. I don't particularly like it, but it's true. So if the end goal is to try and have a presence, let's say online, what can people who have 3 followers right now, who might not even have an Instagram account, how should they just be using it? Should they just be, because it's an amazing platform to post your art, right? To showcase what you do. You can use it as a sales vehicle as well, I'm assuming. So it's, even though there's maybe what could be known as an eviler side to it, business. It's a great platform to promote what you're doing, right?
It is, yeah. And I guess a lot of people are like, oh, like I've got no followers. Like what's the point in me posting? And the great old Gary V would say, that's your journey, and you don't know where you're going to end up. And if you keep at it, you're going to like succeed. You don't know when that would be, a couple of years, maybe 3 years, 4 years. But if you haven't been posting from the start, or you haven't been showing your journey, your story, you've got nothing to look back on. Like, where have you come from? What you just ended up here? So if you scroll down to the bottom of my Instagram, you'll see like my, all my paintings from the get-go. And I'm just like, oh, should I delete them? But no, like it's my journey. And I would have only had like maybe 100 followers, but you got to start somewhere. And I guess another little tip, which is much just a lot of artists discuss sometimes, I do paint quite mainstream, and I sort of paint what people can relate to. And I guess that does catch the art, like the everyday eye. Like people respond to it. So maybe try painting, your subject matters like that. Animals, everyone loves animals. Like color, like people love color. Like it is therapy looking through, a page that's super bright, gives you that hit of,
Yeah. So maybe be influenced by what's popular or on trend.
Yeah.
But you say, and
unpopular opinion though.
What's that?
That's a bit of an unpopular opinion in the art world.
Yeah, I get it, but it could be a livelihood, and those things need to be considered. So it's not a dirty thing at all. But like you say, you've just got to start. I think you mentioned in there, you just have to start. And so, I mean, look, this has been so interesting, and I could keep on chatting. Speaking directly to the people who are watching, who are just at the very beginning of their artistic journey, what's just one bit of advice that, even you may have said it before, how do we get them out of their seats and into an art studio or even their bedroom painting? What is it? What do they need?
The number one key advice, and I know it works because I've had a fair few people message me lately, and they're like, look at my space. I set up a space. And so that sounds so simple, but even if it's a little corner in your room, a space that you don't have to pack up and set up every time that you feel like creating, because I guarantee you will be put off. If you have to go up and set up and clean up and put it away and move it around, that's not motivating or inspiring in any way. So I say, if it's outside, you might have a little corner outside or next to your bed that you can set up a little drop sheet and leave your stuff there. Have a space where you enjoy, that you can go to at any time. A desk, end of the kitchen table. When I first started, I painted for the first 3 or 4 years in the middle of a kitchen, like in the middle of a kitchen, like no like little room or anything. I was just splat bang in the middle. So it doesn't matter where, but just have that space for you. That's probably my key advice. And then just dedicate any time. If you have half an hour, if you have 10 minutes, even if it's a little scribble to motivate you for the next day, any time that you have, dedicated to your craft or what you want to start.
That's awesome. Danielle, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
You are.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of people who are going to, get stuck into it now. And well done, by the way.
So.
Doing
if they have any questions, they can message me.